Random Sunday live stream. I know this is the first time I've live streamed in a while, so just hold on 1 second and I'm going to get on the Telegram groups and tell people that I'm live streaming in case people don't know. Now, you guys see that. If you guys want to take a look at the deer head, that was a deer that I killed about 15, 16 years ago during deer season. So just, I did this live stream because I had several things that I wanted to talk about in regards to the news. The main thing that the two main things that I wanted to talk about, both of them you probably have already heard of, but I wanted to elaborate further on them, is the Gabby Petito case. Brian Laundrie, who is Gabby Petito's fiance, he had months ago taken his own life. The FBI and the police found his body. Well, now they uncovered his diary and they read in his diary, and they found out in his diary he confesses to killing his fiancee Gabby Petito, and there are not any other suspects according to the FBI. He has confessed to killing Gabby Petito, and that the FBI is declaring it a closed case. Now, it made national news in the United States for the longest time because it looked like a social media drama, because these people had taken a year off, they were engaged, and they were going to travel around the world, around the United States, and film a lot of their journeys. Well, and then Gabby Petito ended up missing, and Brian Laundrie used her debit card to go back home. But yeah, Brian Laundrie has confessed in his diary that he admitted to killing Gabby Petito, so case closed. Okay. Here's the other thing. Okay, Julius Malema's hypocrisy has been exposed once again, and it looks like he is just a sucker for attention. He doesn't have conviction on any issues. And Julius Malema, recently he had gone to the Mall of Africa, to all the restaurants in the mall, and he had interviewed, just randomly showed up and interviewed and talked to several of the restaurant owners and asked what proportion of foreign nationals were the owners hiring versus the number of South Africans. And he said his goal was to make sure at least 60% of South Africans were being hired. But this is a contrast to what Julius Malema had been talking about years ago. Every time there were xenophobic attacks in South Africa, either violent or non-violent attacks, either physical or verbal altercations with South Africans versus Nigerian immigrants, or immigrants from Zimbabwe, or immigrants from Zambia, or immigrants from Mozambique, or immigrants from Namibia, Julius Malema had said, we're all black Africans, in his words, that we're all Africans. If you're black, you're African. Don't let xenophobia get in the way. And he warned his supporters about xenophobia. Well, it seems like he's taken a complete 180-degree turn from this, and now he's making sure that these restaurants are hiring South Africans. Well, the owner of Cream, which is a chain of South African restaurants, he was born in Turkey, but he's a naturalized citizen in South Africa. He makes it a point to try to hire South Africans as best as possible, and he doesn't go to other countries and issue work visas for other African countries. But if somebody is a naturalized South African citizen or already has the proper visas to stay, then he hires the best person for the job. He had said that the proportion of people applying to the hospitality and service industry, many more foreigners than South Africans are applying. Now, he tries to hire South Africans when possible. Now, in Malema's defense, the owner was scared of Malema when Malema just randomly came in there because of what happened in the Clicks department stores years ago, and then with the looting, protesting Jacob Zuma's arrest. But he said Malema was very cordial and very polite, although sociopaths can fake politeness all the time. And he said Malema was very cordial, very polite. The owner says he doesn't pay attention to politics. Okay, Charlie Adams says, howdy, how are you, Charlie? Hope all is well. Well, basically, and Malema was satisfied with the responses that the owner gave him. But this was just another example of Malema being a sucker for attention. And this is not the first time Malema has flip-flopped or done a 180-degree turn on a political issue. when Malema had gotten expelled from the ANC and being chairman of the ANC Youth League, that's what led Julius Malema to go and start his own political party. First, he said that he would, when he was with the ANC, he said he would kill for Jacob Zuma. And when he got expelled, he said Jacob Zuma's still our leader. But then, when he started the EFF, he was saying Zuma must fall. Then when Zuma got expelled and Zuma was going to go to jail, Julius Malema mysteriously reconciled with Jacob Zuma. So if anybody knows what Julius Malema stands for or knows what, or is still supporting Julius Malema, they really don't know what Julius Malema stands for anymore. They think they know what he stands for. I recommend that you just don't support Julius Malema because he don't even know what he stands for. Let's just get right down to it. Thank you, Charlie Adams, for saying, hope you're doing well as well. Yep, hope all is well. So I'm just letting people know that I'm streaming at the moment. And, okay, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, this was over in India, but January 23rd is still January 23rd here in the United States. It's still January 23rd in South Africa. Well, January 23rd this year will be the 125th birthday of Subhas Chandra Bose, otherwise known as Netaji. Now, he was an Indian independence advocate. He advocated for violent overthrow of the British Empire, whereas Indian National Congress called for nonviolent means. That's one reason he left the Indian National Congress and eventually first fled to Nazi Germany and then wasn't satisfied with Nazi Germany's responses to India's independence. Then he fled to Japan. And he was satisfied with the response that Japan had given him. But let me explain more about, even though Chandra Bose advocated for Indian independence, he did not advocate for democracy in India. Hitler admitted to Chandra Bose that he admired British rule of India. And then Heinrich Himmler, who was kind of Hitler's right-hand man and founded the SS, Heinrich Himmler did not want Chandra Bose there. He was kind of cold to Chandra Bose, and because of racial issues. Well, Chandra Bose did like some things in Nazi Germany. He admired the police state. He admired the lack of political freedom that Nazi Germany had. And Chandra Bose, by his own admission, admitted he wanted to put that in India once India became independent. But the Modi government, and I typically admire Prime Minister Modi with his relationship with the U.S. and then his standing up to communist China. And he is normally, I mean, there's a lot of things I agree with him on. But at the same time, they're going to build a massive statue in New Delhi, India, of Chandra Bose. And then they're going to have a hologram there depicting what the statue is until the statue gets constructed. First of all, I think that's a waste of taxpayers' money, number one. Number two, Chandra Bose, like I said, he wanted lack of political freedom once India became independent, and there was a lot of the police state that he wanted implemented. Now, and he was willing to ally himself with Hitler and with the imperialist Japanese government to make that happen. And Chandra Bose was not the first leader of the Indian National Army, by the way, in World War II. It was Captain Mohan Singh, who did volunteer to fight for the British in World War II in the hopes that if they were loyal to Britain, that Britain would give them independence, which Britain did in 1947, by the way. Well, 2 years after World War II. Well, Mohan Singh, once he started the Indian National Army, he realized it was going to be a puppet army to the Imperial Japanese. Mohan Singh was a prisoner of war captured by the Japanese, and he, in order to be released from prison, he started the Indian National Army, and he thought this was going to help lead to India's independence. Well, Mohan Singh grew very, very disillusioned with the Japanese military and kind of believed that the Japanese military had zero interest in granting India any sort of independence whatsoever. So Mohan Singh quickly resigned and wanted to disband the Indian Army. Well, the Indian National Army. Well, the Japanese threw him back in prison. And once Chandra Bose left Nazi Germany to go to Tokyo, Japan, all right, thank you, Stevie. You said look at the camera directly. Thank you very much. Yeah, there you go. Once Chandra Bose had realized that I mean, once Chandra Bose realized that he could become the leader of the Indian National Army, Chandra Bose did. And there, according to the testimony of the British as well as British Indian soldiers, there were a few hardcore soldiers in the Indian National Army, but the vast majority of them were just trying to get out of POW camps and really ran at the first sign of danger. They also most of them did not put up a good fight. And the reason the British Indian Army typically easily defeated the Indian National Army in any engagement in World War II is because there were spies within the Indian National Army that were very disillusioned with Chandra Bose as well as the Indian National Army, and they provided the British key intelligence as to what was going on. Yeah, Charlie Adams said that, and he's right, the Japanese didn't take the Indian National Army seriously. Now, in Chandra Bose's defense, when Japan did occupy the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in World War II, and Chandra Bose did negotiate with the Japanese, and Japan relinquished control of them, and they stopped oppressing the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Chandra Bose did do that, and I have to give him credit for it. Where the rebellion amongst the Indian soldiers amongst Britain happened, this is a complex issue. The Indian soldiers, most of them thought that even though Indian National Congress said don't enlist to fight for Britain because Britain promised a lot of more Indian independence and Indian mobility after World War I, and that didn't happen. Well, when many Indian soldiers bravely enlisted in World War I and fought gallantly, well, many Indians were willing to give them a second chance and flocked to recruiting stations. And there was not a draft in India. All the Indian soldiers that fought for Britain were all volunteers. Well, Chandra Bose advocated for violent overthrow. Now, Mahatma Gandhi said if Japan invaded India to not submit to Japanese rule but do passive resistance like he was doing against the British. Well, Nehru went to jail for not supporting World War II. The British arrested him, but Nehru advocated for guerrilla campaigns against both the British and the Japanese because Nehru, another independence advocate for India, did not trust the Imperial Japanese any more than he trusted the British. Well, Chandra Bose had a different situation. Well, many Indians, even though they remained loyal to Britain, they didn't view the Indian National Army people as traitors or scumbags. They just thought they went about it the wrong way. But the British didn't care in that situation, and they were going to label them as traitors. And they sentenced one Christian, one Sikh, and one Hindu for fighting for the Indian National Army, and they hung them, much to the dismay of many of the British Indian soldiers. And that's why some Indians who enlisted in the British Navy committed mutiny on their ship and hung up a picture of Chandra Bose. It wasn't support of what Chandra Bose was doing for Nazi Germany or Japan. It was because the British government wouldn't grant the Indian National Army soldiers clemency. So that situation is taken way, way, way out of context. And that's why many Indian National Army veterans in India to this day get a pension, and they get from the government, and their families do as well. And they get medical benefits and a lot of these other things, health insurance, so they can go to the best healthcare facilities in India. Veterans of the British Army, them and their descendants don't get anything. They're shunned upon, they're frowned upon. Many of them have to hide their service to avoid being beat up or chastised. Now, it's gotten better. India and the UK have tried to reconcile reconciliations, even under Modi. This is one of the few situations where Modi is anti-British with that. Most younger Indians realize what British did was a mistake, but the Britain of today is not the Britain back then, and they want to reconcile, and they want to just get on with their lives. Yeah, there was an RAF mutiny in India as well, even though most Indians remained steadfast to Britain, not because they were satisfied with their conditions, but they took an oath, and in India, it was like, if you took an oath, you didn't break an oath. That was like sacred duty to take an oath. And many of them, even though they had bad conditions in the army, what they were making in the army was more money than they were making at many other jobs in British India. So they made a lot of money, even though they didn't make much in the military, they didn't have to pay for anything. So they sent a lot of their money back to their relatives, their parents in India, or their sisters. So yeah, that happened. And the Tony Nagy says, "Hey Brett, what's up? Hey Tony, how are you? How is life in Canada? It's 30 degrees Fahrenheit here in Mississippi. Like it is very cold. I know in South Africa right now, at least in Cape Town in the Western Cape, it is 30. A few days ago it was 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees. That's about 100 degrees Fahrenheit." And Cape Town was the hottest place on planet Earth, because I know in the southern hemisphere it's very, very hot right now on Earth, and then in the northern hemisphere it's just very, very cold. And right now in Mississippi, our weather changes by the second. Just last week it was in 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was just a yeah. And then yesterday was plus 10 degrees Celsius in Canada and minus 20 degrees the week before. It was kind of the opposite in Mississippi. It was 70 degrees last week. Now this week's in the 30 degrees. So that's why I sound a little weird. Like it's not sinuses or COVID, but it's allergies. One other thing I wanted to get to you guys, if you guys don't want to take the jab, that's your prerogative. And if you don't want to do that, that's your right. I'm not saying it shouldn't be your right, even though I recommend vaccines. Here's one thing I do want to discuss, though, and this is